things now. Hello and welcome to the Kokopop podcast. It's our first episode. We are so excited.
Woo woo!
Yes. So to set up the premise of what this is, I'm Catherine. I'm here with my little sister Caitlin, who is a complete and total K-pop newbie.
Yeah, I'm going to go into what I've done to prepare for this, which is nothing. I've done nothing.
Perfect. So each week we're going to go over a different artist, group, or other K topic, and I'm going to just introduce her to this world. We're going to discuss favorite things. We're going to learn new favorite things. And we are starting with EXO, which just so happens to be my favorite group. So what a great way to start. If you're not a huge EXO fan, which why wouldn't you be? But if you're not, subscribe, stick with us. We are going to be discussing so many different topics each week. We're going to cover NCT, BTS. We're going to cover Twice, Red Velvet, Blackpink, new groups, old groups. We're excited to get started. So let's dive into EXO.
EXO, like hug and kiss?
Well, yeah, that's how it's pronounced, but how it's spelled is EXO.
Ah, I see now. EXO.
Yeah. It derives from some sort of backstory of them being extraterrestrials from an exoplanet. I know. So,
I love all of my pop groups to have backstories.
Yes, I need the whole history of, these would be like a Superman type backstory. But honestly, that's kind of what it is. So get ready. I think EXO is generally considered like a third generation K-pop group. I think most people kind of tend to say first generation started in the very late 90s. So two previous K-pop generations. That's where a lot of, and hopefully nobody is offended by this, but a lot of when you think of K-pop, it's very like kind of cheesy. Mm-hmm. If you even have like a concept of what you think it is, it would come from maybe those first or second generation groups to a bit. But they really, paved the way for these third. And now I think most people agree we're kind of into a fourth generation with some of the newer groups that are coming out. And we will get to those later on. But EXO has been around for about 7 years now. They have a significant backstory of them being extraterrestrials or having superpowers and coming from this exoplanet.
Now, how is this backstory introduced to the viewers? Is it through their music videos, or do they have songs about it?
Yes. So if you look down on the watch list, one of the first music videos that we're going to watch is called Growl. Mm-hmm. So there's a few previous music videos to Growl, which is the first one we're going to watch today. And that is really because I hate the previous ones. There's one that's called History. There's one that's called Mama. And to me, it almost seems like it's a completely different group than the EXO that I know as I've been introduced to it. If you're interested, feel free to go back and watch a little snippet of those ones, but I can't force myself to watch those. But in those, it gives you the idea of what's going on and it starts to introduce. But here's the thing about K-pop. It's so much more than just the music video and the song. It's this huge marketing campaign where they have teaser videos. And I think with EXO, there was something like 20 teaser videos that came out like in the year before the group even debuted that kind of introduced like their talent themes for each individual member. And oh, by the way, that is something we need to get to is the just huge number of members in these individual K-pop groups.
I see in your notes it says that it was originally 12 members.
Yeah.
And then it split into two different EXO K and EXO M. What does that mean?
EXO was the overarching umbrella term or name for the group as a whole, but from the get-go, it was two subunits. EXO K was the group that was going to do performance in Korea in Korean, and EXO M was the group that was going to do activities in China in Mandarin. That's what the M stands for. So there was the two groups. Just from the get-go, the two subunits, 12 members total. Okay. What was interesting about this is that they would essentially have the same song and it would be released at about the same time, if not the exact same time. But one was in Korean and one was in Mandarin. Mm-hmm. And then they would go do their promotional activities, TV shows, reality shows, all the things that go into the marketing of, K-pop groups. And then after about a year and a half of activities separated to a certain extent. They started joining up for different activities, and Growl is one of those first music videos where they actually combined. So all the members are into the actual music video. So it's 12 full members dancing and singing. It's a lot. So prepare yourself.
Cool.
But just a couple things to touch on before we start diving into the video so you have this background. There are now 9 members, but one of them, the last remaining Chinese member, Lei, who actually is my bias, my favorite. He's mostly inactive because he's like one of the most famous people in China now. So he does a lot of solo Chinese promotions and activities and has his own song and things.
Gotcha.
But he does, from time to time, still do cameo work almost with EXO. But for the most part, when you see EXO, you're just going to see the core group of Korean members that are remaining.
He's like the Michelle and Kelly to be honest. I just made a bunch of people angry.
Don't even go there. No, if you want to scroll down to the 3rd page, I think it's like I did a little snapshot. It's one of their debut photos. And these photos they're just so cute. They look like little boys, obviously.
They are 10. That's a serious question, though. What's the general age that they start these kids at?
I've heard of some really young kids starting in the trainee programs of these different music companies. So I think there's a few one-offs that are like preteen or maybe even before, but early teens. Mm-hmm. And they usually think the average for most is they'll be trainees for like 5 years before they'll be, if they're lucky enough to be selected out of that trainee group and debut with a group.
Wow.
Yeah. So a constant singing, dancing, I guess media training is probably one of those things. English lessons.
Much stage momming.
Yes. And so that's the big thing about, and you know how in the States, I don't know. I have no clue. Pick any artist in the top 50 right now. Have no clue what company they're signed to, right? I don't know if you ever, it's not a thing. But I mean, I guess in Korea.
The only people you would know maybe rappers.
Oh yeah, sometimes because
they become rivalries.
Yeah, and a lot of times those artists have some sort of part ownership in the company as well, so it's more tied to the artist as a person. Yeah. But in Korea, there's the big 3, as they call them, as far as the companies that manage all these different celebrities and artists. And there's SM Entertainment, there's JYP, and YG. So EXO falls under SM. Okay. And people will say that each company, all the different groups that fall underneath them that have a certain type of look or style or flair or sound. I am not familiar enough with all of it to be well versed there, but maybe we'll pick it up over the time. So going back to just this roster, I put a little red mark on the ones that were previously part of the original 12 and then left after the first 2-3 years.
Yeah, each one of those. This to the listeners, the red mark he's talking about is like one of those circles with a line through it, like the no smoking band. It's actually very so these photos are all black and white. These boys are in the suits and ties.
It looks like school photos, kind of.
Like schoolboy photos. Yeah. And then there's red marking over them. It almost looks like a hit list. It kind of scared me.
Oh, don't say it. I'm gonna get no. Okay. Each one of those that are no longer part of EXO, Luhan and Tao are Chinese. Chris is Chinese Canadian, and they're all still performing and doing some activities in other markets. So they still have a pretty big fan base and following. And some people are really devoted to the original 12 versus now what EXO is. So I don't want to offend anybody because K-pop fans are very devoted. Okay. So it's not a...
No.
I just want to make sure it's very clear.
Oh my gosh. And they have their own symbol.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, we'll get to that. So let's go through just very quickly and we'll go down to that. So I don't think that these are necessarily in any particular order in this roster here, but Chen is the first member on the top left. Mm-hmm. He is just superb vocalist. After you listen to a few of their songs, you can pick out Chen's voice immediately amongst all the others, which is interesting because there are so many. And then this is our first glimpse of, even though they look very young, you can see when they were born here. In Korea, you are part of like a line almost, or a year group, and it starts basically at the first of the year is what your Korean age would be. So even if you were born in December, you'd be considered your Korean age like a year older than you really are, I suppose.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So a lot of times when you hear people talk about things, they do talk about like the 91 line or the 92 line. And that'll be all the members that are born in that year.
Oh,
yeah. So it's very big.
Is that true of Korean culture as a whole, or is that just as how they refer to these group members?
Yeah, that age order is very important in Korean culture.
Gotcha.
So moving through this, you got Chen, Xiumin. Oh, and then I think you'll notice there, Chen and Xiumin are actually stage names. So Chen's real name is Kim Jong-dae.
Okay.
Xiumin's real name is Kim Min-suk. And also just another little bit on how it works in Korea. If you didn't already figure this out, your family name
is your first
or
name,
your last name is first. So the second parts of the name, I guess, their given name that their parents came up with. So
gotcha.
Luhan, he's our Chinese former member. He was considered a vocalist as well. Then you have Dio, whose real name is Do Kung-soo, and he's a vocalist, and he's awesome. He's actually becoming a very famous actor.
Oh,
so he's even in some more recent international film release. I think there was one called, it just came out. It was like a tap dancing war movie.
Whoa.
Oh, I have to see what it's called. Swing Kids. It's about the prisoners of war that were forced to put on different shows, but apparently it's very gruesome, but it is also very good, is what I'm hearing from people. So just FYI.
I don't know how to wrap my head around that.
I know. There's so much. All right. There's Shenyol, who is the rapper of the group.
Who's the bad boy?
Shenyol and Chen, and then a member that's down on the bottom line, are also given the nickname of being in the Beagle line. And the reason for that is they were all born in 92, so they're all in the same year group, but they're the ones that are the silly, funny, crazy ones, like a Beagle puppy, apparently. Yeah, so that's what they're called. Kai is the next one. He is a Korean member as well. His real name is Kim Jong-in, and he is the main dancer. He's very famous for being a really great dancer. He grew up taking ballet lessons.
Okay.
Sehun is the backup rapper and backup dancer to both Shenyol and Kai. He's also what they call the maknae, who's the youngest member. All the members generally watch over them like big brothers or big sisters in the girl groups.
Okay.
All right, Lei is the next one. His real name is, and I have no idea how to pronounce, unfortunately, a Chinese name, but Zhang Yixing, I'm gonna say, and hopefully I didn't murder that. But he's like a really great dancer. And he doesn't get a lot of time in many of the EXO videos, but the little bits of time he does get are always awesome. And he's really funny as well. So he's cool. Chris, one of the former members, Chinese, but was raised in Canada for a good portion of his life. Suho is the leader of the group. So even though Xiumin is the oldest, and a lot of times you'll see the oldest member is also the leader, but not necessarily. The leader is generally chosen based on who trains the longest, or sometimes maybe who can speak the most languages or has the natural ability to speak for the group, for media, and do different things like that. And Suho's real name is Kim. Let me do a double check on that. I don't want to offend anybody by saying the wrong one. Oh no, it's Junmyeon. Junmyeon.
Okay.
JUN-MYEON. I don't know how to pronounce that yet, as I'm sure is very obvious. Okay, the next one, Rivals Leia, is my bias, my favorite, because it's just so funny.
Before you say what his name is, I just want to...
Oh yeah, give it a try.
It looks like it's Bacon.
Yeah, so a lot of people do call him Bacon. So it's very, very close. Just a little bit of a flair. So it says Bacon.
Okay.
Yeah. And he is, just like Chen, he is just a superior vocalist. He's awesome. He is also a very good dancer, but because when they're on stage, you have people like Lei, Sehun, and Kai, who are very, very excellent dancers. They attract your eye when you're watching the videos, so it's hard to kind of see other members. But as we'll go down the watch list, you'll see that Chen, Xiumin, and Baekhyun created EXO CBX, like for Chen, Baekhyun, and Xiumin. And you'll see what awesome dancers they are. And you wouldn't necessarily know that just watching some of the larger group EXO music videos, because they just kind of get drowned out by the other talent. And then Tao was a Chinese member, also former. He was a rapper, but he was also the group's martial artist. There's a few teasers that they have out there for him that I watched as I was preparing this. And it looks like he's very talented, but that was always a funny concept to me.
Can you imagine back in the day, NSYNC or Backstreet Boys, having a martial artist, or I don't even know what the equivalent would be.
Like a juggler?
I just
No, I gotcha. It's just it's an interesting thing. I what I feel like they did in a lot of times is like for the teasers that I saw, they incorporated the martial art to blending this superhero power with like almost like dance moves, like choreography. Mm-hmm. So it was interesting. And don't get me wrong, it's actually really impressive because there's no way in hell I'd be able to do anything that he does in those videos. But yeah, it's just like taking the strengths of the individual talents of the members and kind of marketing and blending them in how you can to make them stand out, because there are a lot of groups out there in the K-pop market. So I guess you have to take whatever you can. Maybe there will be a juggler in the future. Before we go into, maybe we'll take a moment later on to discuss some of their superpowers, because there is a video where some of that starts to come up. So we can kind of talk about that then. So, okay, I think it's time for you to watch your first music video. Woo-woo! All right, let's do Growl. And if you haven't noticed on the watch list, the ones that are indented are based on time available. And if you're really liking it, those are really great videos, but it's not like mandatory watching for the sake of giving you an overall view of EXO for today.
Okay. Is there a note section in the podcast that you could include the watch list so that people at home could watch what we're watching?
Heck yeah.
All right.
Good call. Looking out for people. All right. So what we'll do is we can watch it, but after the video, we'll actually have a bit of a discussion on what you noticed.
Yeah.
Cool. This is 2013, boy. All right.
Yay!
Get in my hat.
All right. Okay.
All right. So, a little bit of a hope you don't have epilepsy type of video with all the flashing lights.
Yeah. Well,
but
it wasn't bad though. I liked the song. It was catchy. I was just thinking of words that I thought it sounded like in English. In my mind, I'm like, get it on, get it on, get it on. Baby.
Exactly. Oh my gosh. It's so funny that you say that, because there are some hilarious videos for EXO, but for all the K-pop groups, because it does have such a large international following at this point of like frequently misheard words in whatever song. And some of them are very funny. So
it bothered me because, like, do we know that the people that were in the forefront during certain vocal parts are the members that were singing that part?
So unless that has been a ruse that has been going on since 2013, now that I've watched a lot more of their videos or listened to their music, I can tell it's the voice of the person who is singing.
Okay. It bothered me because some of them, like, it was so quiet. Obviously, they're not singing live as they're dancing or whatever, but production or the dubbing over, it seemed mismatched. Or maybe it's just they do a bad job lip syncing, I guess. Some of them, because they're like open very, very big or whatever, and it's kind of like a louder set. Yeah. But I thought the dancing was pretty good. I'm trying to think back to like boy bands that we've had, and I think they're certainly all seems like, in general, more talented dancers, or at least have better choreography than we had, like in sync or whatever. But it was obvious that Chen, or who had the New York hat on?
Oh, Kai.
Yeah. It was obvious to me, like, right away. Oh, okay. He feels that he's the more seasoned or more comfortable dancer.
Yeah. And I think that's going to be a theme through most of the videos you're going to see. There's a lot of little different names that they give K-pop members for like their role in the group. You can have a lead singer, a main singer, all this different stuff. So you're like, well, which one's the actual like lead singer?
Yeah.
They can also be like the center or the face of a group. And I think Kai is generally considered to be the center, not only because he's a very good looking man, he's very talented as far as dancing. So when they put him in the middle of the group, it's going to draw your eye. So people tend to say that like Chanyeol, for some reason, maybe not the strongest dancer, but you won't really be looking at him specifically when you've got Kai in the center of the group doing the dance. So you'll see that quite a bit.
And maybe that was also caused some of my confusion too, because maybe they put the stronger dancers in front or whatever when it's another person.
Oh yeah, sometimes exactly. They do have different types of formations. So sometimes the person who's actually singing will be maybe slightly in the front, but on the left-hand side, or in the center, but in the back, with dancers spread out to the left and right in front of him. So that is one. I see what you're saying now. Yeah, that can get a little confusing.
All right, I like it.
All right, yay! Okay, and then the video link I sent you after the fact, we'll watch later because it's more recent performance of Growl that EXO did at the opening ceremony for the Olympics in South Korea last year. Yeah, so it's kind of like a different view of it, and they're a little bit older, a little more experienced, so it's a more interesting watch. So, but we'll do that a little bit later.
All right.
So next one, let's skip over Overdose for right now and go to Call Me Baby. And
I have a question. Has this, I know that your daughter, she's gotten super into this with you and has taken Korean with you. Has this also opened her up to wanting to try Korean or other Asian foods or anything?
Yeah, so a little bit. She's always, loved American style Chinese food. She was definitely introduced to that by her dad. But ramen is the thing she's kind of into. And I think that was something her interest was sparked when we would watch some of the reality shows or just Korean TV shows. That I wouldn't say maybe a staple, but a very, very popular type of dish in Korea and other Asian countries as well.
Kevin, when I was last in Chicago, Kevin took me to a ramen place that was amazing.
I bet, yeah. Our traditional ramen in the States is those little packets that are like 40 cents. But real ramen is all sorts of vegetables, and you can have different types of protein. You can have an egg in it.
It's becoming super popular. I mean, it is. So I went down to Champaign-Urbana this week for a training, and U of I has always had a really large Asian student population.
Yeah.
They're a big name school, a big drawer for people in the business programs and the engineering program.
Oh, yeah. I mean, huge
had a
engineering
decent
school.
amount of Asian food, but oh my gosh, it's amazing. I want to say like 50% of it that I saw down there was Japanese, and then there was Korean, and there was Chinese, some other, Indian, and it was amazing. And so I think it's kind of sweeping the nation because everyone realized that ramen is the bomb.
It is so delicious. But, on top of that, it's affordable.
Yeah.
You feel like you're having a more filling and nutritious meal with something like that than if you went and got fast food. And I think that the reason a lot of those places, we're seeing them here pop up too, even just like in our outdoor shopping centers and stuff, be like these really cute little ramen places. I think that's awesome.
So where I live is not super small, but a smaller community in the Midwest. And we don't have any ramen. None of that has popped up. We have some pho spots. To me, there's some distinct differences in the broth, and I'm not cultured enough to know what that is, but I know that I flipping loved ramen. Pho I like too, but it's not the same.
Girl, I remember that time I came to visit you and you were in Illinois and we got 8,000 pounds of sushi. Do you remember that?
Yes, and I didn't eat sushi for about a year after that.
Our eyes were definitely.
It wasn't even like the greatest sushi.
Oh,
that's probably why I couldn't have it. I was just like, whoa.
I know. Oh my gosh, I will never forget that. I was like, "What have we done? Let's eat."
So hungry.
Oh gosh.
Okay, so I have Call Me Baby loaded up.
All right, let me know when you hit play, and we'll go for it.
Yay!
All right, we just finished watching EXO's Call Me Baby, which was released in 2015. So now we'll go over our thoughts.
I thought it was good. Oh, I still had the issue with the bad lip singing. This isn't specific to them because I watch a lot of, I'm going to butcher his name, but Kyle Hanagami choreography on YouTube.
Oh, I've never seen that.
I love. A lot of similarities in his dance moves that I've seen in this group's. And a trend that I thought is like lots of flourishes with people putting their hands like over their mouth, like wiping their lip sexily or whatever they're doing.
Oh, yeah.
That's interesting choice for the person who's singing right now.
Get some lip work in here. Like, not only dance, but with a large group of people, but you're also the main vocalist.
I was thinking about how large their groups are, and two things popped up. One, when they go on tour, I know that previously you said one was more of a Chinese Mandarin group, the other one was Korean. And now that they're kind of mixed, do they all go on tour together or do they still split up? Okay.
Yeah. So after Chris, Luhan, and Tao left a little later than the other two, but after the Chinese members basically departed, EXO-M ceased to exist. And they were all just EXO at that point. So they no longer even referred to it as EXO-K or EXO-M.
Gotcha.
And it wasn't until the subgroup special project of EXO-CBX came out that there was something that was separate.
My other thing was, it just shocked me a little bit to have so many members. And obviously there's a lot of work that's going into developing these characters. They've all got slightly different outfits, different tennis shoes, and obviously the hairstyles to show their different personality. That's a lot of different people to invest that time and creative energy in. And then does that dilute the fan base for each person?
I don't know. The fans are so devoted and so huge. And the fandoms for K-pop groups, they have their own fandom names. They have communities online that they flock to. They wear the group's colors. They have the light sticks. They collect the photo cards. They'll buy, when they release albums in Korea, they'll just either give like a photo card, these little tiny, they almost look like little school photos that your parents would put in their wallet, when you're grown up. But they do like one or two in an album. And people buy a ton of these albums just to get a full set of the photo cards. Like, yeah.
They're like baseball cards.
Yeah. It's intense. And so I don't know that it necessarily dilutes, I think, but that's why your favorite member will be your bias. But then you'll have your bias wrecker. That's someone who's not necessarily your favorite, but a second favorite, or someone who every once in a while comes in and does something cool, so cool. You're like, oh gosh, you're competing for my bias. So I don't know that it dilutes. I think it actually ramps it up a bit, to be honest with you.
Is that something that directors try to get people to, or the members themselves try to do then? Are they always trying to one-up each other for attention or that sort of thing?
So that's kind of up for debate. Which came first, the chicken or the egg sort of thing? Is, did these people become trainees and then be picked from the trainee pool to be in the group because they were so charismatic? Either their voice sounded a certain way, or their dance style was a certain way, or they were able to be really outgoing on variety shows. So when it came to that portion of the business, do they pick people based on characters they already have, or do they give somebody like a role that does sort of suit them a little bit and then just kind of amp it up once they become part of the group? Like, oh, hey, you're the funny one. Hey, you're the sexy one. So I don't know exactly. I think maybe the more successful groups, like EXO, is hugely successful. It's a little bit more organic. And then the ones that maybe aren't so successful, maybe it's a little more forced. And maybe that's why.
The other thing, and this is, I guess I could bring it up at any point, not specific to this video, was just looking at the school photo lineup that you had and how young they all look.
Mm-hmm.
And then looking at, so the oldest ones were born in 90, so that makes them 30, right? I mean,
29, 30. Yeah.
Yeah. And they just have such baby face. Like, are they...
Is it natural? Is that what you're going to ask? Or
like, I guess, and maybe that's just me not knowing enough about Korean culture and like what their aesthetic is, what's valued, but it's just...
Well, so I think I might know where you're getting at a little bit, but if I'm off, correct me. I'm sure you've heard already that Seoul, or South Korea's plastic surgery capital of the world, right?
Yeah.
So I'm not going to go into which members people think have gotten plastic surgery in the past, but I will tell you there are some very intense or innovative different types of plastic surgery, things like kind of narrowing the jaw. So you have more of like that very slim, almost to not a pointed chin, but you can kind of tell that there's a theme there amongst those photos, right? A higher nose bridge to get like a higher, I think that's what they call it. They refer to it as like a higher nose where you have an actual like distinct bridge is very big. The double eyelid surgery is very big. And that's almost considered just like almost nothing anymore.
Like people it's our lip injection.
Yeah. I mean, probably, I think it's like an in and out type of a surgery. So common that they've got kind of perfected to the point where there's very little risk involved anymore. So just so many people get it. So yeah, thinking of those things, so like a very slim face, jawline, a higher bridged nose, and then wider eyes, kind of all lead into that Korean beauty standard.
Gotcha.
And they do look very young, and just like in America though, it's a point of pride to look very, very young.
Beautiful, yeah. But like, but then in their marketing and stuff, are they encouraged to still act like little boys, or do they have their own lives? Because maybe this is getting too deep, and I'm sure I'll figure it out as we look at more groups or whatever. But just, I don't know. I don't think that this is a very westernized culture thing for me to be like, oh, there's so many of you on this group, and you have to be on these reality shows, and you have to do these little tasks. And me, as an adult, grown ass woman, I'd be like, I need my independence. I need to break free.
I don't know. It's such what I've seen on different like documentaries or heard is that it's become such a thing to strive for, to be a K-pop idol, that parents will put their kids in K-pop classes to train up, try to make a trainee group, and they'll spend just all the years of their life focused on this one goal, and such a small percentage actually gets picked, and then even a smaller percentage actually is successful, because there's so many K-pop groups that debut every single year, but only a very small amount actually get to the point where they're well known or that they're considered super popular or famous. So it's kind of sad in that case, but everyone's chasing something, right? So yeah. One thing I wanted to mention going back to the video is some of the funny things, and I noticed a few things in this watch that I never noticed before. Well, and I think I should know while we're watching it, is we see a very blonde Lay in this video, which I think it's the only video where Leia's blonde, and I don't think he's been blonde again, but it's just so cute. I love it. We also get a very good introduction to the wonder that is Suho's eyebrows in this video throughout, with a couple close-up shots. And, look at that's
signature move.
I guess so. So unfortunately, we have to call this episode. Caitlin has some responsibilities that she needs to run off and take care of.
Sorry. I guess we can do this part 2.
Yeah. So this is going to be our EXO part 1. And we'll be coming back to dive further into the world of EXO and the world of K-pop next week. So stick with us for EXO part 2. And like I mentioned during the intro, we are going to be discussing so many groups, new groups, old groups, your favorites, everything. So stick with us, subscribe. We love to have you here. And also let us know if there is a group that you would like us to cover. So if you have a favorite group you'd love for us to dive into, please send us an email at kokopop.podcast@gmail.com. That's kokopop.podcast@gmail.com. We'll be back next week. So thank you again, and we hope to see you next time.
Okay.
We will.
All right.
All right. See you later.
Bye.